Welcome to the talkSPORT 2 Transfer Centre. And James Hooper joins us in the studio now. Afternoon to you, James.
Afternoon.
Well, plenty going on the talkSPORT website at the moment. Just to update you, I mentioned briefly before the break that we had some news coming through this morning, where it was announced that West Brom were in talks with Southampton over a $12 million deal for Jay Rodriguez. We now understand that those talks are at an advanced stage, and Rodriguez could be confirmed to be signing for the club by the end of this week. So he's been told he's free to leave Southampton this summer, and that initial $12 million is understood to be the asking price that they want for him. So we will keep you updated on that one as more news comes in as well. But big news at the top of the top five for Everton fans.
Yeah, it's the big story on the site for us today. Everton, they're looking to break their transfer record for the second time this summer already. Having signed Jordan Pickford for $30 million from Sunderland, now they're trying to sign Moussa Dembele from Celtic. So he scored 32 goals in 48 games after signing for £400,000 last year. So obviously he made a big impression in Scotland. And Everton, they have a lot of money to spend right now, which you can't help but think it's because they've already sold Romelu Lukaku.
Yeah, it feels like that they're pre-spending that money before it comes in. They're waiting for the divorce to come through, and they think, well, the money's coming into the account, so let's start spending it now. If that Lukaku deal falls through, they're going to end up with one heck of a credit card bill. But that would take up to $84 million for the summer already, with David Klaassen as well. So quite the statement of intent from Everton.
Exactly, and if Lukaku, if he was looking for Everton to be ambitious, this is the time to potentially stay, give them one more year. Not that he will go to Chelsea, more than likely. But yeah, it's exciting times for Everton fans, and they should be adding more names. Sandro Ramirez is close to joining, and you wouldn't put it past them to signing 2 or 3 more names.
Moussa Dembele is the ultimate question mark, of course, because as it always is the way, if there's been a player to come out of the Scottish Premiership in recent years who you'd say could have an impact elsewhere, you'd argue it's Dembele, but we've seen a lot of players in the past, who can score 30, 35 goals in Scotland, fail outside of Scotland, so that's going to be one to definitely keep an eye on. We discussed this story yesterday. Mo Salah reportedly close to joining Liverpool. We heard yesterday that he was due to be flying to Merseyside at some point over the next couple of days, and it's seeming like this transfer is basically done at this point.
Yeah, as you say, he's due to fly into Liverpool today from Cairo, and a £35 million fee has been agreed. It's just the structure of the payment that has to be settled right now. But I think that will be a huge signing for Liverpool in terms of getting the ball rolling for their summer moves, because the Van Dijk episode, that was extremely embarrassing and very frustrating, I imagine, for Klopp, because he would have been his number one defensive target. So if he gets Salah, that'll relieve the pressure on Sadio Mane, and then you would expect that a striker would be Liverpool's priority. So Aubameyang might be available, and having worked with Klopp, that could be a move that they might go for.
Yeah, we've heard Aubameyang 60 million Man City potentially with a bid today. That was on the back of the Metro as a big story, but that's actually a really interesting shout. Liverpool could be another spot that target him. Salah's a weird one for me because I like him a lot as a player. He's less of a traditional winger in that he's not a guy who's going to get to the byline and supply the ball. He loves to cut inside, loves to shoot. My problem is that they missed Sadio Mane so much last year when he was missing, and this is seen as trying to add that extra bit of pace, that extra bit of creativity, so that, if somebody goes down, they've got those other options there. But you've gone and signed another African player in an African Cup of Nations season, so when Mane leaves, Salah probably leaves as well, as Egypt are pretty well positioned to qualify. That's the only caveat for me. Maybe just thinking about 2 months out of what will end up being a 4 or 5 year deal is silly, but yeah, I was just, it kind of caught my attention a little bit.
Exactly. But he's a top talent, so you have to put that to one side. But obviously, Liverpool, they had that dip in January, so hopefully they'll be able to get over that. But yeah, it's a hurdle they're going to have to climb over.
A couple of transfer alerts that are in the top 5 as well that relates to clubs from Europe who are now targeting players that we were expecting could be Premier League bound this summer.
Yes, Barcelona, they've set their sights on Ousmane Dembele of Borussia Dortmund. Obviously, he's a hugely talented French international. He's 20 years old. And there was talk in Germany that he was potentially open to a move following Thomas Tuchel's departure from Dortmund. But since Peter Bosz from Ajax has been brought in, you'd imagine he'd want to retain the top talents at Dortmund. So more than likely, I'd say he'll stay in Dortmund for at least another year before leaving, potentially. But yeah, Manchester City and Liverpool have also been credited with an interest in him. And you'd imagine he would command a huge fee were he to leave this summer.
Yeah, it's another. Borussia Dortmund said last summer we're going to stop being a selling club, and we're now hearing that Aubameyang, Dembele, both could be out of the door. Interesting that Barcelona are now in for him as well, because Luis Suarez, Lionel Messi, both now pushing into their 30s. You know, the only player of that front MSN that's under 25 is Neymar, and so stocking up for the future maybe. And the other one is Carlos Bacca, who has been linked with Everton and Arsenal, but it sounds like he might now be going to France.
Yeah, Marseille have emerged as a big option for him. Obviously, he turned down West Ham in pretty public fashion last year. West Ham have had a very bad run of failed pursuits of strikers, and considering they're going for Olivier Giroud now, you would expect that would end in failure as well. I think West Ham are setting their sights a bit too high for their targets for their strikers. I think they need to realise that a player like Bacca at AC Milan, unless he was to get enormous money at West Ham, he's not going to go there. So I think they should concentrate on maybe emerging talents rather than these already successful strikers.
I mean, Bacca was someone they were linked to last summer as well, and it was a little bit. This feels like history repeating itself a year on. Last year, it felt like they were targeting those players because they were desperately trying to keep Payet around, and they wanted to show that they had ambition. They were going to grow. They were going to push for. You know, we forget 2 years ago they pushed the Champions League places pretty hard in the season that Leicester won the Premier League. It's just. I think you're absolutely on spot on and on the ball with that. Just trying to target less. I mean, someone like Sandro Ramirez, who Everton have been targeted with, that's much more West Ham's ballpark as far as I can see.
Exactly.
And finally, a bit off the transfer, but it could affect Spurs in a big way this season. Big news story that a lot of people are clicking on talkSPORT.com.
Yeah, Tottenham's plans to reduce the size of the Wembley pitch have been rejected. Obviously, they had a fantastic record at White Hart Lane last season, as well as that being their last season at White Hart Lane. That would have helped a lot, but it was the second smallest stadium in the Premier League last year, so they will now be playing at the biggest pitch in the Premier League next season when they're playing at Wembley. So obviously, there's going to be an impact on their season, but I think the criticism that came Tottenham's way last year, a lot of that was down to the quality of opponent that Tottenham played at Wembley. I think people ignore that fact. They played Monaco, Chelsea, and obviously Champions League opponents in Bayer Leverkusen and CSK Moscow. So I think when they're playing all these other league games against the lower half opposition, I think they'll find their stride. I think it's being over exaggerated.
I think there's an argument for the fact that when you're playing week in, week out football somewhere, you can turn it into your home base and it becomes less of a special occasion. Always the worry with Wembley is that other teams will raise their game because they're playing at somewhere so special. I've always found the pitch argument an interesting one, because it does look like, when you watch them, and it was the same with Arsenal when they played there, you watch the football they play and you say that the expansive surface doesn't suit their style of play. But actually, when you look at the distances, it's only 5 metres longer and 2 metres wider. It's not that much bigger than it was at White Hart Lane, and I think they'll adapt quickly. I do, but I think every Spurs fan is desperately hoping that there won't be any kind of Wembley curse this year. Well, head to talksport.com. Thank you to you, James Hooper, for all the latest transfer stories, and they've always chocked up with a little bit of speculation on how teams are going to line up for next season, etc. as well. Always really good fun to check out those articles. So talksport.com for all your latest transfer news.